Krusty Krab, home of the Krabby Patty, with a help wanted sign in the window. For years I've been dreaming of this moment. I'm gonna go in there, march straight to the manager, look him straight in the eye, lay it on the line, and I can't do this!
There's a term in animation I find really interesting: flanderization. It's defined as the act of taking a single, often minor action or trait of a character within a work and exaggerating it more and more over time until it completely consumes the character. And it got me thinking about this guy, and how dramatically his design and how he's animated has changed over the years. But to understand that, we have to take a look all the way back to this. This is SpongeBob's initial design. It's fairly predictable, and coincidentally follows a few specific principles of animation. Stephen Hillenburg was teaching marine biology to children when he created a comic about sea life, which included Bob the Sponge. His love for marine biology clashing with his love for animation. When the comic went unpublished, Hillenburg would work his way up through the animation ranks on shows like Rocko's Modern Life, before crafting an idea for his own show. He took Bob the Sponge and turned him into Spongeboy for a show titled Spongeboy Ahoy, after very smartly retitling the show thanks to a competing cleaning product of the same name. This initial version of SpongeBob was born.
Today's the big day, Gary.
In animation, there are a few principles that are taught to students and had held true in practice for decades. If you want to make your character cuter, make them rounder. Large teeth can be intimidating or ridiculous, so often they're saved for side characters. Squares, boxes, and pointer characters are reserved for villains because, well, actually science. According to the Barrow Neurological Institute, round characters, round edges are ingrained in us to be treated more fondly than those without them. SpongeBob's core design as a square with sharp square pants and circular holes could not care less about any of that. SpongeBob was, in season 1 and in this way always has been, a paradox. A wholly rectangular wavy mix of geometric nonsense. And in season 1, this was awesome.
I'm ready!
Who's ready?
I'm ready!
Season 1 is the only season to be animated using cell animation exclusively, meaning animators and artists had to draw almost every frame of each episode by hand. It shows in SpongeBob's design this season. There's human error present. He's not always the exact same amount of square. His shape shifts. Every time you see him, you see a new version of him. He was free to be molded each and every frame. Unfortunately, the cell animation brought with it a darker look, blander backgrounds, and more expensive episodes. So, SpongeBob's design and approach would have to change. Bob the Sponge here would undergo quite a few changes in season 2, and it's here where that flanderization I'm going to mention a few more times lays its roots. SpongeBob would switch to digital animation in season 2. His design would become cleaner. It would lose a lot of the human error that comes with cell animation, but in totality, this design and its changes were great. And this stuff would start happening.
I'm not always as confident as I look.
You can thank C.H. Greenblatt for that. During this season, he became intimately involved in quite a few episodes, and it was his style that slowly molded the sheer insanity of SpongeBob's squishy expressiveness. Greenblatt would draw SpongeBob as a vehicle for emotion and less so as a structure of features. But we'll come back to Greenblatt soon. Oh, and season 2 also saw the introduction of SpongeBob's new cheeks. Quickly, another season passes by and the Spongebob Movie is created after season 3. This film saw SpongeBob begin a rapid change. SpongeBob's design in the film was bright, it was expressive, it was the peak of squash and stretch. And thanks to a bigger budget, it was played with in ways audiences had never seen. But there was also this sequence of events.
Oh, Mr. Waiter! 2 more, please!
Woo!
Now this little piece is just conjecture, but the Goofy Goober moment was huge. It led the movie's marketing campaign, it spawned a viral song, and led merchandising in stores. But it painted SpongeBob for a moment as a goofy, perpetually nitwitted kid, as opposed to the goofy, sometimes nitwitted kid we had seen before the film. While the rest of the film returned SpongeBob to the character we all knew and loved, well, what happened after wasn't quite the same. The show's creator Stephen Hillenburg would leave the show after the movie, and season 4 would see SpongeBob's design shift in that very gooberish direction. In Season 4, SpongeBob got larger pupils to amp up his cuteness, backgrounds got brighter, and SpongeBob got a bit more rectangular. This coincided with a shift in personality. SpongeBob became increasingly, well, stupid. And for some, this was funny, but after this season, well, it became who he was all the time. So for others, this change was not as humorous. Around the time Season 4 had ended, SpongeBob would begin to lose all hints of intelligence in favor of a more slapstick approach. His design, as you'll see, would follow suit. However, staying in place at Season 4 for a moment, C.H. Greenblatt will come in to direct Fear of the Krabby Patty.
Holy shrimp, they're everywhere!
A masterclass in animated expression, turning SpongeBob's design into an easel for him to paint on. And paint, Greenblatt did. But he too would leave SpongeBob's staff near the end of Season 4. And with that, Season 5 of SpongeBob would see a regime change, and a design change as well. It was this season where SpongeBob went full-on digital animation, as opposed to just the inking and painting being done digitally, and the flanderization would continue. SpongeBob's design would become progressively manic, while his literal body and animation would become stiffer in Season 5. Picture a cardboard box, with eyes and a mouth that moves like a human's, and now give the box legs. That is where SpongeBob would head throughout Season 5. But this new, stiff, oddly expressive design would make itself clearest in Season 6. Here he'd get smaller eyes while mostly retaining his pupil size, he'd get larger eyelashes, and his cheeks would get even chubbier. In an attempt to maybe recreate the magic of Hillenburg and C.H. Greenblatt, SpongeBob's malleable face had consumed his entire design. He became cute in exclusivity, dumber in character and dumbed down in design, and seemed to be geared more and more towards a younger crowd than originally intended, constantly crying or laughing in a pool of his own stupidity with no in-between. And it was no secret either, this design is considered by fans to be some of the worst designs in the show's history. Season 6 saw SpongeBob turned into an exaggerated, cutesy caricature of himself, a design that carried into Season 7.
Maybe you should start acting a little more normal!
I'm not normal.
Throughout these seasons, SpongeBob wasn't alone in the stiffness, in the changes, or in the personalities. Patrick's only redemption quickly became the few moments where he said something intelligent, and Squidward's scowl became an almost permanent fixture. His ability to emote, his ability to express himself, reserved to a very few infrequent moments. These seasons saw a character, in both design and writing, that had for some reason lost its way. SpongeBob had forgotten what SpongeBob was. The flanderization completed.
I lost something once. I lost something I couldn't live without. My identity.
But then came SpongeBob's biggest change since, well, maybe its inception, and it was for the better. This is SpongeBob's Season 9 design, redesigned for the better after SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water, a movie that quite literally revived a hint of the character in its design. Bright, colorful, and far better looking than the previous version of himself audience had seen the past couple of years. That movie, that design change, just so happened to coincide with Stephen Hillenburg's return to the franchise, helping lead the charge on the film and ensuing season. So why all the changes? Is there a pattern to be seen here? Well, I asked myself the same thing, but I think the answer lies in animation itself. SpongeBob was the idea of one man, a man who created this character, who loved him, who gave him life. No one understood SpongeBob better than Stephen Hillenburg. And a few did get close, the C.H. Greenblatts of the world, but there's a clear line after Hillenburg's departure and another at his return, and there's a reason for that.
I'll draw me, and when Squidward answers the door, it won't be me.
Animators and creators are the stars of animation. They are their characters in so many more ways than in live action. And when you lose their touch or their insight, you essentially rip the heart right out of those very creations. You can't recast SpongeBob, and you certainly can't recreate the magic crafted by the magician that conjured him up. Flanderization occurs because creatives are asked by networks to try to replicate and understand things on a level that maybe no one is capable of outside of a couple individuals. SpongeBob became consumed by chasing that original Hillenburg magic. If you're an animator, always remember that every character is a part of you. Doesn't matter if anyone else gets it, no one got Bob the Sponge at first either. Don't chase, don't flanderize, create what you feel. Whether that means forgetting the animation staples of the past or creating a talking sponge, because that's what art is. Expression. And no one seemed to know that better than Stephen.
How high's he gonna go?
All the way, Patrick. Up to the great beyond. Goodbye, friend.
Happy trails!
That is a wrap on today's episode of Nerdstalgic. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this video on the channel, press the like button you see down below. Also, right next to it is the subscribe button. If you want to make sure you see every video I put out here, press subscribe. And on your screen right now are 2 more episodes of Nerdstalgic. And I'll see you guys in the next video.